Welcome to the Journey to Wellness podcast, sponsored by the Essential Wellness Society and Healing Wheel Holistic. I'm Melissa Stonehill Caiyem, and I will be your host. With over 40 years' experience in the health and fitness industry, I am ready to dive in to some of the most conflicting topics we have regards to health today. Let's go. Welcome back this week on the Journey to Wellness podcast. I'm thrilled, really thrilled to be sitting with my good friend, Rob Decker. And it's interesting because as I was driving here to do this, I was thinking like, I'm so excited. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, Melissa, you got to come up with some other words because you say that every week. I meet the greatest people. I haven't just met this guy, though. We've been friends for 4 years. We work together. And I'm not even going to tell you his story. I'm going to let him tell you his story. And so I'm just going to turn it over. Rob Decker.
Thank you, Melissa.
Who are you? Like, what is your story? Why are you here?
All right. Well, apparently two people were intimate. Right? Like, that's why I'm here, right? No. So a little of my story, and you can cut me off if I start getting too carried away because I can go on with my story forever. So, I was born to a woman who was encouraged to have an abortion. Mm-hmm. And she refused to do that. When I was 6 months old, she met another man who eventually just became my dad. It's the dad I knew, right? My childhood was full of violence and anger, police coming over the house, drugs and alcohol. And that's pretty much what I was exposed to and witnessed most of my life. When I was 8 or 9 years old, I was molested by a neighborhood boy. And his dad and my dad were friends. And that was just not something that I could share with him. Eventually, that led into pornography for me and desensitized me from a lot of stuff. And so as I started to age and got into my teens, I got introduced to sex, drugs, and alcohol. And it really went downhill from there. By the time I was 17, I was a full-on addict. I had to get drunk and high all the time. And it was more alcohol, more drugs, different drugs, harder drugs, right? 20s, pretty much don't remember them. So there's not much to say about it. Probably went through 3 or 4 jobs. A lot of relationships. I was never faithful. I couldn't stay faithful. It just wasn't.
Sounds like you were a pretty broken kid.
I was a very broken kid. I was a very broken adult. By the time I was 29 years old, I met a young lady who was probably just as broken as I was. And eventually she accused me of rape and attempted murder, which led me out a 3rd-story loft window where I tried to break my neck in the fall. And instead my foot clipped an awning, changed my fall, severed my spine, and broke both arms, collapsed a lung, and went to the hospital. And I was told I would never walk again. And
I'm just smiling because it's like, it was almost like God reached his hand and go like, no, come back. Come back here.
So really cool stuff. Like, and you just keep doing that. So, I just finished writing my book, God's Awning, and my foot clipped an awning when I fell. Changed my fall, right? Changed my life.
Right.
So when the idea to have a book came up, it was like, what are we going to call it? So, God's Awning, right? And it makes sense. It sounds good. And a couple weeks goes by, and all of a sudden it's just like, look up the word awning. So I do. And you know what it means?
No.
Protection.
Wow.
Awning means protection. And the hair stood up on my arms.
Oh, it's so great.
So that was that transitional period of my life. But, I ended up getting slammed with all these charges, told I would never walk again, fully medicated. I got diagnosed in the hospital with being bipolar. So eventually the charges got dropped. All my bills got paid. I had this amazing God moment where I was laying in bed and I asked, they're like, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? And I I'm highly medicated. I have tubes coming out of my neck, pain medication.
And handcuffed, right?
And handcuffed to a bed. So I was arrested. They came in after my suicide attempt and still arrested me. They shackled me. They felt like I was a threat to run.
Yeah, you're all broken. You're going to run.
Broken to pieces, and I'm going to run. And, I just hear the charges will be dropped, your bills will be paid, and you will walk again. And $2 million worth of medical bills, I've never had to pay a cent. It's all covered. Walk again, I'm a health and fitness coach. I play center field, left field for my softball team.
So we're going to get there.
Super active, yeah. So
I want to roll it back just a little bit because
I'll
I got
get carried away.
No, it's okay. Don't sweat it. Carried away is fine. I mean, and for those of you watching, when you see my face smile or something like that, I'm so proud of this guy, and I smile. These are just it's joy that I feel for what he lived through and what he did with it. So when I first met Rob, we worked for a corporate situation in the health and fitness industry, and he came on board, and it was one of those communal type of meetings where we're introducing new employees, and this guy stands up in front of the room, and I think you said something like,
"Oh no.
Hi, my name is Rob Decker, and I'm a suicide survivor." And I just sat there and I was just like, what the hell? And I had to check myself because it was like, why did that disturb me so much? Why did that disturb me? And I really thought about it because, we want to raise awareness for many different things. Raise awareness for suicide, raise awareness for
mental health,
violence, and so many different things. So we say the words, we're raising awareness and we're going to do this amount of push-ups for mental health and suicide prevention, this and that. But when you come face to face with it and somebody's in your face and says, I'm a suicide survivor, you think first oh my gosh, why did he just tell me that? We don't even know each other. And then I thought what is wrong with me that I'm one of those people that oh my gosh, are we supposed to say that out loud? And then I got to know Rob and I realized that, yes, you have to say that out loud. And you have to tell your story, because if you don't tell your story, you can't help people.
Your story could save someone's life.
But that's kind of people get a little shuddered.
Yeah, well,
right?
and I'm very vocal. I have no problem sharing any of my junk, my childhood, none of it, because I know that it could help someone. And in your experience, it could really shake someone. So I was smiling big time because the story I thought you were going to tell was when you asked what my spirit animal was, and I sat there and I was like, it's beast mode. You're like, beast mode, huh?
That's so funny that you remember that.
I do.
That is my question a lot.
Because I was waiting, because I'm sure you were waiting for a stallion or a bear, I don't know,
beast
a tiger, mode. Right? No, it's beast mode. I just go beast mode these days.
That's true.
Right?
And so I have been able to see, besides your own, journey through your trauma, I was able to see your x-rays, and I know that you've got metal in your body and stuff like that. Yeah. And one thing that we share in common is, I experienced some things in my life that were not the path I wanted to continue on. And when I was 18, it's when I met Jack Lalanne, and that changed my life because I didn't want to be like those people that were on the path that I wanted to get away from. And through fitness, I was shown a love of self and shown another world. And I was able to tap into that. And what I really love about how you're helping other people is really through some grit and sweat and determination.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how you went from broken, handcuffed in a hospital bed to an epiphany of really rising up taking this horrible experience. I can't even imagine what you went through as you're falling, what happens in the brain. And then you realize, oh my gosh, this isn't heaven. This is a hospital. I failed. I tried to kill myself and I failed. Yeah. What was that turning point?
I believe there was purpose for my life. And it took a while to unpack that, because I still had to get over the initial stages of the physical brokenness, the spiritual brokenness, the emotional brokenness. I mean, there was a lot of packed down trauma in my life that I tried to medicate through drugs and alcohol. And then here we are in this moment. And this was like the perfect storm of events for me. It's like, this is the moment. So when I was very young, so this is the power of tongue and this is the power of words. I was told that you would be dead or in prison by the time you're 30 years old.
Right.
This was 8 days after my 29th birthday. So when this situation approached, I'm like, oh, here
so it was
is.
An adult in your life.
An adult in my life.
That was supposed to be in a position of love and affection.
100%.
That instead of giving you a rah-rah positive
affirmation,
outlook,
love, and teach me trust and love.
Kind of planted a seed that you were a waste of a human.
Yes, and I heard it enough. I heard that was a POS a lot and that I was going to be dead in a prison or I was going to do nothing with my life. And there's a pretty awesome story because, those were words from my dad that raised me. And right before he died, he called me up. He knew he was going. He knew he was on his way out. And, he apologized to me. He said, I never wanted you to be better than me, I don't know why you love me. I don't know why you talk to me. And all I had to say was, just because I do, Dad. I love you. And I think that gave him, like, my son loves me regardless. And he was able to move on from that.
That's a really high place. So forgiveness is just a really, really high energetic place. And when you're seeking the divinity within, and wanting to connect to your highest source. If you don't have forgiveness, then it's almost like there's a gate that you'll never open. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. And I had to be taught forgiveness.
And forgiveness is hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. But I had to be taught it, and I trust in my source and where I got it and the example that was laid out before me. And it makes it easier. So it's simple. Forgiveness is simple, but it's not always easy, right?
I would say it's definitely not easy.
It's simple. It should be done, right? But it's not always an easy.
Right. It's almost like you have to trust the bigger picture because the things that get in the way of forgiving someone, I think forgiving yourself is really the hardest thing to do. But forgiving another person too is the ego gets in the way.
Pride and ego.
And people have done terrible things and it's almost like, with that story I told you, my personal trauma story of molestation, that it's almost like if you can't move on and you're stuck in that space of resentment and all the negative feelings, it still occupies space in your head.
Bitterness.
And I just so badly wanted that person to not occupy space in my head anymore and kind of ask, why did this happen and what can I do with it? And then as soon as I was able to release, I started attracting in my own practice women with sexual trauma. And I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to help people.
Yes.
Because I was able to work through it. Yeah, I will never say get over it because it's
no.
It's not something you get over.
No.
But you work through it.
And, and sometimes it could rear its ugly head and show up and remind you, you know, but it's how are you going to handle it, right?
Right.
And it still happens to me. And like you, I believe now that I was willing to address it and grow and move on and learn from it. Now I have the ability to effectively help other people. You know, unfortunately, in the realm that I'm in, addiction and recovery and all that stuff, you get a lot of addiction and recovery coaches, and I know psychotherapists and psychologists, therapists that, you know, haven't even dealt with their own childhood trauma, right? And, you know, they still struggle on a whole different level, but what they do is they'll jump into helping other people. So what I noticed about myself is I kind of became this rescuer because I always wanted to be rescued. I wanted to be rescued as a kid. And I see a lot of people that still struggle with that. Like they have this rescuer complex and they still haven't really forgiven.
Right.
Right. They haven't forgiven.
Right. And so one of the things we were talking about before we went live was being the rescuer. Mm-hmm. And I had to think about that a lot because I have a tendency to do that myself. Mm-hmm. And we have to step back and really check ourselves and make sure that we're not being that rescuer for our own self-satisfaction.
Right. Right.
That, oh, my heart needs to do this, because that's not the intention of healing someone else or helping them to heal or helping them, showing them a path. It's more authentic to not have any self involved. You're getting nothing out of it other than genuine helping somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying, because that's still like, it's in therapeutic terms it's explained as an imago. So what that is let's say you're raised and have a alcoholic parent, and you're that child that you know has to take care of business in the house or take care of brothers and sisters because your parent is just inebriated, or maybe your parent's sick and you got to get the barf bag or whatever. You are now in the role of caregiver, maybe at the age of 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. So as you move along in life, it's very common that you will attract that same scenario
100%.
Because you know how to function optimally in that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's really important to see that, because if you want a long-lasting, healthy relationship, you have to see what your own patterns are.
Correct.
And it was very validating to me that I married a nurse.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I'm the caregiver, and now I'm marrying a caregiver.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's so healing.
Right.
That I'm actually not putting myself in the role, although I'm a mother and the oldest sister of many, and, you know, that's a pecking order kind of thing.
Right.
But so I want to ask you, you went from complete darkness, addiction, your life unraveled, your heart was broken, your body was broken, your spirit was broken. Now you are living. And you're stuck. You got life now in front of you.
I do.
And you said you heard a voice while you were in the hospital. But what happened between at that point getting out of the hospital, you're on your own. Most people with that kind of pain that you felt would be taking prescription drugs or whatever. So what was that period of your life?
It was challenging because I was still basking in a lot of the damage, you know, all of it. And I medicated with the medication they gave me, right, for a while. But what happened is that it was a godsend, because a friend of mine came to me and he knew that I was a personal trainer. Or at least I was before I broke my back, right? And so he's like, can you show me some stuff at the gym? So I said, and all broken up, back brace, like, absolutely, man, I can do that. And he takes me to the gym and I touch the bar and I'm like, dude, I want to lift this, man. And all of a sudden I start lifting, and I noticed that over time I started getting off all the pain meds, because the lifting, the fitness, the strength gave me confidence. And here's the thing about like everything being broken inside of me, I believe it needed to happen. in order for me to live the life that I'm living now, because I lived in such an external world. So I was heavily into bodybuilding. I was into showcasing my body, and like, you know, it was the life. It was the external life, because internally I was completely like, I was dead, right? I was dying inside. And I had to be broken on the inside to start living life in there, and start appreciating and growing and you know, really looking at what was important and what was not. So over the next 3 or 4 years, I was just hitting the gym, and I started making goals for myself. They told me I'd never work again, that I'd be on disability, that I'd be medicated for the rest of my life. Started getting off all the medications. I went to go see my doctor, and he looks at me and he's like, "What's going on with you, man? Like, you're getting muscular."
So if anybody ever sees Rob's Instagram, he's not just working out, okay? He's doing some crazy awesome stuff, super strong. You know, I love that one where you were doing some wild push-ups with your son on your back. And there might have been one with your son on your back and your daughter in the front and things like this. And the squats. You were doing squats. You had both kids on you.
Yeah.
With someone who's got metal and hardware in their
Titanium
back.
rods. Yeah.
And what I love about you is you it's possible. You make it, life is possible. And that's just exudes everything you do is the possibility. So here's 2 questions. So the first one is very deep.
Okay.
And you may not have an answer. It's okay. So you're this kid into this young adult, and you're completely, love is really removed from your life growing up. Mm-hmm. You know what it's like. You're a parent. Mm-hmm. I know how much you love your kids and your family. Mm-hmm. But that love was not there for you.
No.
You were able to go into a healthy relationship.
I was.
Meet the woman of your dreams. Have a family. Well, there's a bridge there. How did that happen?
Well, that was my faith. You know, I really dug in and got to know my Creator and realized that love did exist, and He loved me, and I was grateful, and I was given kind of an understanding of the people around me, and that they had been through similar stuff that I had been through, right? And so I couldn't be too hard on them for the things that they did to me, because they had been through it too. They just didn't address it, right? Mm-hmm. And they just kind of stayed the course, where I was given another opportunity at this life, at least I look at it that way, to really heal and grow and live. And so I was able to learn love that way. And I mean, you know that once you start having kids and stuff, that's a different kind of love. Like,
yeah, for
wow,
sure.
You know.
Well, God willing, it's the same for all parents out there, you know, because we know that some people maybe shouldn't have been parents.
Right, yeah.
But
I had to learn how to love.
Yeah.
I had to be, you know, the thing that got stripped from me and not even given to me, because, you know, was it really removed? Was it ever given, right?
Okay.
Was, you know, you're watching your parents interact and how they love each other and how they love you, and that's how we learn, right? Is in that environment, and I never got to learn those things. And so to be able to have this overwhelming love come over me and be like, this is how it's done.
So what can you say, let's say with somebody who finds themselves where the concept of connecting to an energetic love, a spirit love, a God love is so ambiguous that it feels out of reach for them.
That's right.
How do you help that? How do you help people on their journey to connect to a source of love and I repeat this word divinity again, because I feel like finding the divine inside yourself brings a whole other clarity, whether it's feeling your guardian angels or Jesus or God or Mary or Buddha or whatever that source of your divinity is. There's a lot of people that I've connected with that don't see the clarity. There's a little bit of ambiguity and the connection. Now, for me, we talked about this as well earlier. You know, that creating a routine where I give my space of prayer. You know, creating that is, or meditation.
Right.
You know, so when you work with people, because I know we haven't talked about it yet, but you just went through an education as a therapist. And what kind of therapist are you?
CCAR addiction recovery coach. So I wouldn't say that I'm a therapist. Like, you know, I'm a recovery coach. For me, what I do is, you know, I try to bring God to people. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring his love to people, and I want people to see, like, I want them to hear my story and see, like, it can happen. Like, I don't feel that I'm like this super special guy that got all these special talents. It's like, you can have what I have. It's like, it's right there for you. You know, I truly believe that with all my heart. It's just getting people to believe that, you know. And so, you know, I try to pour into people and let them know that you're loved. Like, you were created for a reason, and you may not see that. And you got to get people to kind of see through, you know, and it goes back to the forgiveness and the trauma. Like, there's a lot of harboring that people have. And how do we get past that? You know, and again, for me, the drugs and alcohol were just medication for me. It was just medication. And how do you get past the self-medicating and start looking at those things that need healing in your heart so that you can grow and that you can give back? And I believe that I've received that, so I'm able to do that.
And I love that the self-love component is through fitness because I relate to that. For myself, for my children, for people that I work with, I feel like this is the way we nurture ourselves. We care for this vehicle that we were given. This is our house right now. This is the only house we have on this planet. And to take care of it with good food and exercise and sleep and joy in your heart and surrounding yourself with good people is so key. And I love that you took the fitness approach. So talk a little bit about Kingdom Fit.
Kingdom Fit. Well, Kingdom Fit was actually really created to be a ministry in a way of using fitness as kind of the key to get into the door with me. I know this. I know the physiological impact that movement and fitness has on the brain, but I also know that if I ever wanted to walk or play sports again, I had to work out, right? And you learn a lot about yourself when you're willing to deal with the kind of pain that I had and trying to get bigger, stronger, faster when you're like below baseline, right? And just that whole movement. And so what I wanted to do is be able to get in front of people, because the one thing I learned about being a personal trainer is that you're their best friend, you're their brother, you're their therapist. Like that's what you become. So fitness was a great avenue for that, and it allowed me to be in that realm all the time. So I constantly had gym jobs, and that's just the environment I wanted to be in. And then eventually what happened was you know, we were working at a corporation together, and I just knew it was time to go.
Right.
You know, and
it
you know that.
wasn't easy timing either.
Well, it was we were 1 month away from having our daughter, right?
And you're like, I'm done with this.
Yeah. Well, you know, another thing, it was just another God moment. It was just like I came home one day, and after a long day, because you know how grueling that job can be mentally more than anything.
Right.
And you know, and my son Caleb walks up to me and he's just like, "Daddy, play baseball?" You know, and I was like, "Oh crap, I just don't have it." But of course
tired, right?
But of course I did it, right? It's like, yeah, you're my dude, man. I love you, man. And you know, I want to be there for my son. So in that moment, I just got this overwhelming sense. It was just like, you're done at Lifetime. Kingdom Fit is now. And the fit stands for faith and training, you know. And I walked in the next day and put in my 2 weeks. I was like, I'm done. And I just started building my gym out of my house, and people were donating money and time and energy and equipment to my gym, and it was just happening, you know. And, you know, so fitness and my faith have always kind of gone hand in hand, because they're things you still have to work at all the time, right? And they're great teachers of who you are.
No,
right?
I totally get it. So what are you doing now? So I'll tell you. So this is almost like a tough question, because every time I look at your Facebook feed, you're being interviewed by someone else. You're on this channel, this news. It's okay. Give it a plug. We are here to support your business.
No, I work out because I love food. The audience needs to see that. That's
okay, I work out 'cause I love food. I'm like that too. It's like, you know what? Like I don't want to diet. I just want to get more. I'll get on my bike more or something like that.
I'll run 2 more miles for that box of cookies. Trust me, I'm good.
But you're always like, I'm always seeing you in the news lately, and I know you've got is it a softball team, or you guys got a league now? Like how many teams do you have?
So that's very prophetic of you.
Okay.
The league
So
is very that's prophetic.
Let's go a year from now and come back and tell me if that prophecy came true.
Yeah. I have 2 recovery softball teams, and recovery is bigger than just drug and alcohol addiction. We're talking about childhood trauma and finding a safe place, fun place, a sport that we can play together, come together, and not be ashamed of the things that we've been through. Mm-hmm. And I've equipped the team with, trainers and, therapists and trauma coaches and all sorts of stuff, so that the people coming through in their process of recovery, whatever that looks like, may have someone there for them. Mm-hmm. And if there's not someone on the team, I have plenty of resources outside of that where I can lead them to, because ultimately my heart is to see people heal from their stuff. And so I run a co-ed team, and a men's team, and we're working on a veteran team right now. We want to get some of these veterans out of the lifestyle and community of partying all the time, and because they've suffered a lot of trauma. I grew up, my dad was a Marine, and he lost his life to drugs and alcohol, right? Well, there's a lot of stuff he wouldn't talk about in his past that took place in the Corps. Another friend of mine, Will, I walked in on the aftermath of him taking a shotgun to his head, and I had to see, the evidence of it. Like, it was right there in front of me, and he was, Army Ranger, and so I know, and so even though I haven't served myself, I know where I live. I'm in Colorado Springs, right? I know who my community is, and I resonate with those guys that have been through trauma because, I was raised in a Marine household, so, a lot of these vets are, suck it up, buttercup.
Right.
Like, we don't talk about those things. You shove those emotions down. Like,
right. I don't even think it's that in that military setting. I don't think it's just that. I think it's boys in general. A little boy will fall down. I've heard, parents, when I was parenting little children at the park, and be like, "Oh, you're fine," and I'm like thinking to myself, no, he's not. His knee is bleeding. Could you acknowledge that your child just got hurt?
So let's talk about that. So that was me early on with Caleb. So, the way that my dad would talk to me was not clean, right? We're going to keep this PG, right? But, the vulgarity and like, be a man, like, shake it off, like, and his delivery was so tough. And so when it happened to Caleb early on, I decided it was just a better method to say it in a nice way. Hey, man, just shake it off, bro. You're good. And one day I just realized when he wasn't good that he just wanted his dad's love, and he wanted dad to know, like, that he was hurting.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, like, there was just this shift inside of me. Like, I took my trauma, carried it on to my son, right? And I thought I was doing a good job because I dressed it up and made it look prettier, right?
Right.
But that's not what he needed, because that's not what I needed.
He needed validation.
He needed validation.
Yeah.
And so from that moment on, it's like, come here, son, and just,
right.
God, I freaking love you, dude. And hey, it's funny how much quicker he recovers now. He's like, I'm good, Dad. Like, I'm back out on the field, and
now he's got to, like, peel you off.
Right? Well,
like,
I just adore that little dude. Yeah. Right. But I get it. I mean, even in our healing, there's sometimes we carry over some of that stuff and we make it look prettier than it was when it was given to us, when there just needs to be the opposite response.
So what is Rise as Lions?
So it's a nonprofit that me and a few friends are collaborating on, and it all started with Recovery Rebels and trying to bring together that shame-free community through sport, but we want to expand that. You know, we want to connect with the likes of amazing people like you and people in our community.
You mentioned retreats too.
And doing retreats, right? And what we want to do is we just want to see healing, you know, in our community. We want to see people getting off the drugs and alcohol. Like, that's an epidemic, drugs and alcohol. You know, when the whole COVID thing hit, you know, what was killing people more than COVID was the drugs and the alcohol and the domestic violence and the abuse and the suicide. And you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, there's definitely a national statistic. So when alcoholism goes up, child abuse goes up.
Oh, well, I'm sure a lot of things go up.
Yeah.
A lot of negative things go up.
I was kind of honed in on that because we were doing some stuff in New York to raise awareness for abused children. And that was a statistic of when alcohol consumption goes up, child abuse goes up, and there's a real connection there. So what would you say to somebody who needs you, and maybe they're afraid to need you or hesitating to need you? Because I've known people that have used plenty of different things, and you know, when you present it to them, like, hey buddy, I noticed that you're really drinking a lot. Oh, no, I got this under control. Well, I kind of noticed that this is happening daily. Yeah. Oh, I could stop anytime I want. This is that's what is there, this like a narrative that's pretty common?
But here's the thing, I don't go looking for that. It knows where to find me, right? People start to see what I'm doing and what's going on, and they hear how we've been able to make an impact on people, and then it starts to come to you. It gets drawn to you. So are you saying then... So I don't just walk up to some drunk like, yo, bro, you got a problem. Like, you've been having a problem, dude.
But you probably have known people in your life that are tangible. You know, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's a brother. You know, there's people that are tangible in your life. You may want to reach out and say something, but I think what you just said without saying it is that you can't really help people that don't want the help.
Yeah, and you're just going to waste a lot of time and energy chasing that, right? You really are. Hard. Because, you know, you can only give so much, and you have to get filled up, and you can't just constantly give, and, you know, sometimes that's just banging your head against the wall, and that's been a hard lesson for me. You know, my first few years in this, I mean, I did a lot of that. And I wasted a lot of good energy, but it was a lot of valuable lessons too. Like, I will never take it as a failure in my life because, you know, I am where I'm at now because of those choices that I made.
So living by example
100%
is definitely like something that you do. Do you help people all over the world? Or
I do.
Are you just, okay, so
I do.
So why don't you let our listeners know how they would get in touch with you if you are listening and you are struggling. It doesn't necessarily have to be drugs and alcohol.
No.
Rob works with all kinds of trauma. If you've had sexual trauma, if you've had relationship trauma, if you've had religion trauma, you know, whatever is in that pocket where you feel that you just need to reconnect to yourself, to love, to source, to God, to something bigger in your life, find purpose. How do people connect with you?
Rob@robdeckerspeaks.com. You know, I have a website. So we have like the Recovery Rebels. I have robdeckerspeaks.com, and I have Kingdom Fit. And so, you know, those are all just avenues. Like, I have all these great modalities in order to connect with people.
Are you doing fitness at all over the internet?
Yes. So I have clients over the United States. So it's more for me with those clients. So personally, this is my belief. I'm not into online training. I'm not an online trainer. I'm an in-person trainer. I love, you know, just being in front of people. But I have people that I work with and I train them, but it's also a certain level of mentorship, right, that I also bring with that too. So, you know, for some people, it's hard to go within their community, within their family, to work with people because they're really ashamed and they're afraid to be judged, right? So, I would probably be a safe place for a lot of people because like, this guy doesn't really know me. I can spew it all out to him, and I'm totally cool with that. I receive that.
Do you have like discussion groups? Do you have like people?
It's
that
all
get
one-on-one
together?
stuff.
One-on-one.
We will create the discussion groups through Rises Lions. That's going to be, one of those things that we create. But as of now, so because of where I'm at right now in such early stages with all this, I have that ability to work one-on-one. It's hard for me to tell someone else, go do my job. Go live through my experiences and do what I do. Right. And I kind of like where I'm at because I have that opportunity to still get to know people without the whole. I was struggling for a while because I wanted to be a speaker. Right. Rob Decker Speaks started because I wanted to be a speaker. I don't want to be the guy on stage that people hear the story and they walk away. And, I want to be the guy that people can connect with, like genuinely connect with.
You want to be the guy on third base that gets you out.
I want to be the friend. I want to be the family member. I want to be that for somebody.
Right.
And sometimes that's really hard in certain arenas. And so, I'm just all about the relationship. But here's the thing, people have to be willing to do the work themselves too. There's always work to be done too. There's nothing I'm going to say or nothing I'm going to do that's going to heal you. Like, I'm not going to deliver you from anything, right? And I could be a piece of the puzzle. I could be a huge piece of that puzzle in your healing and giving you hope.
I totally agree with you. And like when we talk about our retreats and we do these immersion retreats, what a lot of people will say, come on to this retreat. It's going to change your life. You're going to transform.
Yeah.
I'll never say that. I'll never promise you that. I will give you the path, the skills, the tools.
Right.
I'll put them all out there, just like all the crayons, but you got to draw the picture. So all of the information to get a hold of you is going to be in the notes for this podcast.
Right.
Please just call out, before we end today, I want you to call out the name of your book, your website, how to reach you.
Will do. 100%.
So what is that?
Rob at robdeckerspeaks.com.
And what is the book?
So the book is God's Awning, so it's going through its final editing. So just give us some time with that. Rises Lions we're in that process where we have the EIN and all that stuff, but there's still like this 5 to 10 month process to make it like official.
Right.
But in the meantime, we can still do stuff through Rising Lions and collect donations and all that kind of stuff. And so now we can filter God's Awning, the book, through the nonprofit. I want to find a way for people to get that for free. That's my heart.
Like a download, like a ebook.
Yeah, try to with a nonprofit, you have enough coming in to where it makes it easy for you just to give away.
Nice.
A lot easier.
I love
And my whole heart is like, I'm not here to get rich. That's not my no. I'm good. Like, I have a great life with what I have. But I want to see people healed. And if my story helps you, if my book, if my, whatever it is,
So if you want to get a hold of Rob, please see the notes in the podcast and get a hold of him, connect with him. Maybe there's a pre-sale going on for the book, retreats, updates, newsletter, all of the above. You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram.
Yes.
And I'll just end with, Rob is definitely one of my favorite people on the planet. And what I got from him right away is just, he's genuine. He's so real. And we can have different experiences, but share so much of the epiphanies from those experiences. Right. And he's a great listener. It doesn't matter what your religious background is at all. He is just open to everybody. I am doing this podcast today from the Center for Essential Wellness in Colorado Springs. Today's podcast was sponsored by Essential Wellness Society and HealingWheelHolistic.com, Healing Wheel Retreats. We do have a retreat coming up July 28th through August 1st in Manitou Springs. I am really excited about it. We have incredible practitioners. And do you have anything coming up? Can somebody join your team?
We're building right now, so stay tuned because whatever we have available will be on the website.
Awesome. So
just
check his website out if you want to get involved.
Yes.
Thank you so much today, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.